Yes, people. We're here the day before transfer deadline day. So we thought we might as well, jump on the air and do an unscheduled show because obviously I think all of us are on tenterhooks in terms of refreshing our timeline, finding out or trying to find out what's going to happen with regard to Caicedo. So it's me and James here with you today. So we'll run the intro and then we'll get right into it. Yes, people. Like I said, welcome back to the Armory TV. I'm G, and obviously I'm here joined with my bro James. How you doing, James?
Yeah, it was good. Been a while, man. Been a while. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I don't know, a mix of emotions right now. I'm
I feel you.
excited, stressing out that we're not going to sign anyone else, but all of the things fans go through. So yeah, I'm excited.
No problem, no problem. No, I absolutely feel where you're coming from, and do you know what I mean? In the various different WhatsApp groups, the timeline, and the Twitter groups that I'm in, I think all different fans are feeling a different and a mix of emotions. So I think it's good to just come on the air in it and just kind of gauge obviously how we're both feeling and obviously how the fan base is feeling. So we've got some comments. We've got a comment from Tony himself, Silver Fox. Yes, my bros, it's going to be a long 34 hours. Indeed, it is. And you know what? There's no better place to start than obviously the player that everybody's speaking about right now, and that is obviously Brighton's, CDM number 6 stroke versatile 8 Ecuadorian international Caicedo. Where are we right now? Well, according to reports, we've had two unsuccessful bids rejected, one in the region of a flat 60 million on the table. And then another one, which I believe was 65 flat with £5 million add-ons. Which I mean, if you want to go by the timeline narrative, it was pretty much dismissed pretty instantly. A lot of the narrative coming out of the Brighton journalists is saying that look, he's not for sale. He's never been for sale, and Brighton are going to pretty much stick to that stance unless they get absolutely crazy money. At the same time, we've heard mixed reports. We've heard not for sale. We've had 100 million. We've had 90. We've had 80, and it seems to be changing by the hour or by the day. So, I mean, there are reports so far today saying that a third bid, potential, a club record for Arsenal is potentially on the way to Brighton. But I mean, with 34 hours to go, how are you feeling, James, about, this whole, what has become somewhat of a saga concerning Arsenal and Caicedo?
Yeah, man, it's the theme of January, isn't it? Us and transfer sagas. Look, I was loving life when we signed Trossard within 24 hours, and I was loving life when we signed Jacob within 24 hours, bro. It's blessed. It's like, oh, we're linked to this player. Oh, we've had a bid accepted. Oh, he's on the way to London to have a medical. Those kind of transfers I love because it's like no rival bids, no bid rejected, go again. It's just simple. But yeah, I don't know. I had a with the whole Mudryk situation. He was somebody I advocated a lot for. I like the look of him. I wasn't one of these people that knew a lot about him before the links,
Mm,
but like most fans do, once you get linked to a player, you go and be like, "Oh, who is this?" And you go looking at videos, you go watching scouting reports.
yeah.
You do the typical things. You're like, "What could he offer Arsenal and this team?" So after doing what every fan does and watching way too much footage of him, I was excited because he looks like a cracking winger.
Yeah.
And then in I don't know, the ninth hour, Chelsea come along and steal it because we weren't proactive enough.
Mhm.
I felt like in the negotiations. So within this Caicedo situation, there's a hint of nervousness in the sense of somebody else could just come in and steal him.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that their stance is not for sale, but let's be real. Everyone has a price. If somebody came in and offered Arsenal £250 million for Saka, they're
Yeah.
taking
He's
it.
gone.
Yeah, right. So everyone has a price,
Mm,
um, and it's just if we're willing to match the what seems to be a slowly dropping valuation, as you said,
mhm.
when we first put that £60 million bid in. Um, it was flat rejected. No chance he's being for sale. Nothing. Um, then £70 million bid. Oh, we want 90 million. Oh, we're looking to put in a third bid of 75 million. Our asking price is 80.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I feel like their stance is softening. There is rumors about Sanderberg. I think he still plays for Sheffield United. I think he
yeah.
still does. About him being the replacement for Caicedo if he does leave.
Mm,
So all of the noises outside of what I feel like Brighton is briefing the press is he's not for sale. He's going to stay. Yada
yeah.
yada yada. There seems to be noise that he might end up at us, but I'm
You know
not
what?
holding out hope.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, and I think as Arsenal fans we can be quite reactionary online
Mm.
because I do it myself, and that's why I tend to not tweet because I see reports come in and I think, oh crap, and then I see another report and I get excited. Like I get it, but that's why I tend to not react to those because it's a forever evolving situation. You know what I mean? It's changing, and I'm very skeptical about the narrative that comes out from media outlets. Like, even last night, for example, I'm not sitting in my house Sunday at 11 o'clock at night, honestly believing that Arsenal have just bidded and the bids just got rejected within a couple of minutes. Like it's not happened. Um, it's happened, but it's not happened in that such dramatic circumstances. Chances are we put a bid in on Saturday. After some consultation, Brighton probably said, nah, no chance. That's not going to be enough. At the same time, the narrative coming out of Brighton that he's not for sale is absolute nonsense. And it's a narrative that because if he wasn't for sale, there'd be no negotiations. There'd be no conversation to be had. And as much as we might have a certain viewpoint on the likes of Edu and the Cronkays, you're not going to keep bidding for a player that the club are not returning your calls, they're not returning your emails. You're not going to keep doing that. You're not just going to bid for a player that there's no conversation between the two clubs. So he is for sale. And if you look at the history of Brighton, they are a selling club. Their whole model is built on the fact that they buy these players. Their scouting network is phenomenal, and they go on to sell them for huge sums of money. It happened with Ben White after the same stance was he wasn't for sale. Same thing happened with Cucurella and even the likes of Basuma. It will happen with Caicedo. Whether it's Arsenal in this window or whether it's summertime and it's another club, he will get sold. Same thing will happen with Matoma. And that's just their model. They are a selling club. So, I think the narrative of, Arsenal are just blindly bidding for a player that's clearly not for sale is absolute nonsense. At the same time, I do understand fans' frustration because I think we're on the cuff of potentially winning our first Premier League in almost 2 decades. Really and truly, yes, the squad's not complete, but I mean, come on, we've had a problem in our midfield department for as long as I can remember. And I said this in a couple of group chats. I mean, I felt like we needed to recruit in the midfield area last January. I felt like we'd had to do it in summer, and I felt like we have to do it now. And I feel like we're at the kind of point of almost like it's kind of negligence or kind of the people at the top are being inept in terms of we don't have sufficient cover or competition for Partey. Like we just don't. Right now, El Nene's injured. Sambi's not a 6, but realistically, if we lose Partey, we have no other option other than Sambi playing a 6, who is absolutely finished in terms of confidence. It's just completely evaporated. So for me, it would be the worst thing in terms of his development to throw him in, needing him to perform in that position because we've seen his performances, notably against Oxford, even at the weekend in the FA Cup. But then the only other option, I mean, logically for me, would be to throw in a Ben White there, or a Kivior, who again he's just come to the club. So, what is your stance on the fact that the club has not addressed the centre mid
Mm.
position for the last 3 to 4 windows?
Yeah, it's been a big issue for me. I can't lie. I don't know. We're in a sticky situation now as well with our midfield. I'm like, we need somebody, but we can't. That somebody, if it's not Caicedo, cannot be on a permanent deal. For me,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
cannot be on a permanent deal. And the way I say this is, if we want to be where we are currently for 3, 4, 5 years, we need to address the midfield, but with the right profiles and the right quality. For instance, we were linked with Weston McKennie. If we would have signed him, he would have cost us £30 million, and for me, he's not good enough for
Yeah.
what we're trying to do. So
Yeah.
we're in a dilemma where we desperately need a body, and if we can get Caicedo, that fits both the long-term objective of us signing someone that's going to improve our squad going for the next few years, but also gives us great depth in the short term to cover for Partey or Granit Xhaka. Because let's be real, yes, they are really good midfielders, but they're in their prime, and you've seen with Liverpool how quickly they can fall off of a cliff when they hit a certain age curve. Thomas Partey's 30, Granit Xhaka's 29 respectively, so next season they're going to be 30 and 31. Like, even though it's young 30s, and yes, athletes are staying fitter for longer and they're retaining a lot of their attributes, they can have the same thing that's happened, and they're just nosedive. And then what do? We have Sambi and Oneni for another year. It's not good enough. So I'm frustrated that we haven't addressed it, and I understand that there are specific players and targets we're looking at. I get that, and we are very specific with who we target. But I feel like this should have been addressed in the summer, even when we were linked to Bruno Guimaraes last January, because we've seen this cycle repeat where we didn't sign anyone when we needed to and we fell short. And this is why I'll be more critical this time, because for me, there is so much more on the line than there was last January. I was annoyed that we didn't sign anyone last January, but I understood it because it was like, look, if there's not anyone available long term that we see that's going to, benefit the squad, we don't sign them. And you've seen how well those signings that we made in the summer have done, Vieira, Jesus, and Zinchenko. But I can't accept that stance this time, because if we fall short to a Thomas Partey injury and we come second by like 2, 3, 4 points, Caicedo would have made the difference.
Can you imagine?
That's where I'm at. And for me, I will hold Edu and the board responsible, Richard Garlick, whoever else is there, Tim Lewis, who looks and oversees the deals. It's going to be their fault. And that will be my mindset as a fan, because we're on the cusp of doing something, as you said, we haven't done in 20 years. This will be the first title. I'm 23 going 24. So I was born in 99, right? So the 99 trophy, we won the league, and the other two, I think it was 02 and 04 we won, right?
I feel for you young bucks, man.
Yeah, so I was born in a sense, and I have some vague recollection of us, but my earliest memories are more Fabregas, that kind of era, right? Diaby, bullshit. That's when I started, clocking on really. So for me, this is the first time I've been like, we might actually win something. And when I say win something, like, we've won FA Cups and they're great. They are a major honor, but you're talking major honor, European or league. That's what I want us to see. So for me, I'll be really critical. And we need somebody. We need somebody, and the level of player we need can't be that big of a drop off. So
So like it's funny, because I think, I think the next, obviously the club do, as you said, as you alluded to, and as we know, the club do what the club want to do. They have a strategy, they have a process, they have certain ethics, morals, whatever you want to call it. At the same time, as fans, we probably see it a lot differently, because obviously we're not running a business. We're a lot more emotionally invested. But I mean, I think the next 34 hours is going to massively unite the fan base in the second half of the season, or hugely divide it. Because I mean, even some of the WhatsApp groups and Twitter groups that I'm in, there is very much a difference of opinion in terms of even this transfer of Caicedo. There are the majority that feel like, as you said, we're in a very unique position. Could be potentially pushing for the title. Well, we are pushing for the title. We're top with 5 points ahead with a game in hand. We're favourites at the end of the day. At the halfway point. And I think a lot of fans are just like, get the deal done. It's nobody envisioned us being in this position at this moment in time. We need a player to come in that can compete and cover for Partey, even potentially rotate with Xhaka if the player is versatile enough. And if you look at Caicedo, he can play both number 6 and number 8. So he doesn't just offer cover for Partey. He comes in and he can actually offer, cover for those 2 positions, which could be potentially invaluable.
Yeah, because that's what I think long term. I see him more as an 8 than I do as a 6. Because with all the links we've seen for Rice, Oh, sorry, I'll let you continue. But he just
Yeah,
seems to fit the bill of versatility.
definitely, and that's a theme in a lot of our signings, you know, that Arteta's made. So I completely get it. Now you got one section, you know, sections of the fan base. I think the majority at this moment in time are like, just get the deal done. If they want 80, give them 80. If they want 90, give them 90. If they want 100, give them 100. And then there's another section of the fan base which is like, no, you know, we need to ensure, you know, we don't massively overpay. Because I think even 70 million, I think everybody can admit that 70 million is still overpaying for Caicedo. You know, considering he was bought for 5 million, he's played 26 Premier League games or something like that, and now all of a sudden he's, you know, his valuation is higher than 70 million. So some will say just pay the money, whatever the price, do it, you know, a Chelsea or Todd Bowley. Some are saying no, we need to stick to our morals and our ethics and pay what we see fit. And if that's the case, then we should walk away from the deal. And I think there's another section which is in the minority that are not really sure. Not really sure. You know, it is a lot of money. At the same time, I know what we need, you know, to potentially, you know, win the league. Where do you sit in terms of this transfer, this player, and this moment in time? At the end of the day, Brighton have made it very clear that, yes, they're saying he's not for sale, but we know they will accept a certain fee. Now, I'm going to put the question to you. If that fee is in excess of 80 million upwards, so anywhere between 80 to 100 million, do we pay it or should we walk away?
My stance is 8 million max.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. And I'll tell you why it is. I feel like if it's 85, it's getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
We already bid 60 million, and let's be real. At that price, that's probably either market value or just above market value for January window,
it's a fair
right?
offer.
So
Yeah.
I was critical of the board for not getting Mudryk, but I understood it because in the sense of, look, if you're gonna pay 80 million quid for an relatively unproven player where we have options for, because let's be real, look, we needed Mudryk, but we had decent enough cover there. Smith Rowe could play there. We had Reece Nelson, I know he's injured, out, he could play there. We had Marquinhos again, who could play there, right? So we had like valid cover for that. So I can understand them not wanting to go above and beyond that price. And then we got Trossard for an equivalent fee. So they had a backup plan. That's fine. And that's what I'm hoping is in this situation. Look, for me, if we bid 80 million, I think we get the player. That's my stance, and that's the way I see it. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just being stupid, naive, and they just reject it flat out. And if they do, then we walk away. But I feel like this situation with Caicedo is different to the Mudryk deal in the sense of we don't have anybody else if Xhaka gets injured or Partey gets injured. So it's a needs must situation. And for me, let's be real, right? Our recruitment since the window of outside of Willian, I would say our recruitment has been spot on. I know Pablo, Marie, and Cedric are in there, but let's be real, like we didn't pay that much for them. So out of every player we brought in, I feel like we've gotten a really good deal on them. Yes, when we bought Ben White, 50 million was expensive, but now if you look at how he's performed for the past 2 seasons, you'd say that's relatively decent value for money for the player he is.
Recruitment's been spot on.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like if your recruitment for 90% of the time is spot on and you get them for good price or just above market value, whatever it is, then there are times when you can stretch it a little bit and maybe overpay for a player. And I feel like our recruitment and the finances that we've got now justifies us pushing the boat out a little bit and bringing in Caicedo simply because, again, if we were fighting for top 4, I would say, look, go and get somebody else. But we're not. We're in a different scenario now, and this is what I feel like people are not taking into consideration is if we're fighting for a title.
He's not a gamble.
No.
Like when you
not
look
as much as what you'd think as Mudryk would
have
been.
Like I mean, I know people say he's 21, he's only played like less than 30 games in the Premier League, but I mean, look at the impact he's had in those 26 games. Like he's basically, you know, he's a starter for a Brighton side. I mean, if you look at the way Brighton play, particularly like kind of when they're on song, I mean, he will fit this Arsenal side and this play and this setup like a glove.
I think we'll see a similar situation with we've had with Trossard, how Trossard just 100% seamlessly slipped in. I feel like it'd be like that.
Like for me, he's not a gamble. Like I do get the price, and I think I'll echo what you said. For me, 60 people were laughing at the fact and ridiculing the fact that Arsenal, bidded 60 million. I think personally that's crazy. I think 60 million flat down was a very good offer. It was, as a starting point, it was a very good offer. And if it wasn't for the absolute insane market that we find ourselves in, mainly because of that Manchester club, two Manchester clubs, and predominantly Chelsea, who just pay massively over the odds for players, then I think it's a fair offer. It would get accepted. I do feel like the second offer, reportedly to be 65 into 70, was maybe a bit silly. I think if the first offer gets laughed off at 60, I don't think 65 million plus 5 million add-ons is going to make any blind bit of difference. But like you said, we've seen the narrative of what Brighton are willing to take has changed. It's changed continuously. We've gone from what was, he's not for sale, to the asking price potentially is 80 million. I was having this conversation today with a couple of gooners, and I think I get the whole transfer fee thing, like not paying over the odds. I get the whole wage structure thing. I feel more inclined to say wage structure is more important than the actual fees we pay. Definitely, in terms of that, I don't mind overpaying in terms of fees, if we're going to keep the wage structure intact, because I think that's most important. I think the last thing we want is to have bang average players on high wages over 5, 6, 7 years. So for me, I mean, as much as I don't think Caicedo is worth 70 million, 80 million, 90 million, 100 million right now, my emotion and my need as a fan to potentially push for the Premier League will override any type of kind of morals or ethics about we're paying too much. And because at the end of the day, I'm not an Arsenal accountant, man. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm a fan. I want to win. And I've been lucky enough to see my team win Premier Leagues and FA Cups and stuff like that. But it's been a long time, man. It's been a long time that we've actually really been at the top, with an actual potential title push. It's been a while since we've been in Champions League. Yes, we won the odd FA Cup here and there, but it's not good enough for a club of Arsenal stature. And we have a real opportunity here. So I think, what I mean, I'm definitely in the boat of just, look, we tried to negotiate. We spent a long time. Let's just get it done. Like, if it means overpaying right now, just get it done. Get what you need in. So Mikel Arteta has whatever he needs, to get us over the line in terms of this title push.
Yeah.
At the same time, I understand where other fans are coming from. They're saying, okay, well, if you pay 100 now, what are you going to be paying for Declan Rice in the summer? I get it. I do get it. But I'm like, listen, let's cross that hurdle come summer. Right now, it's about the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? We got to do what it takes. But I mean, only time will tell if we actually, potentially, because I know the reports are that we're going to go in for a third bid. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, we don't have a lot of time. 11 p.m. tomorrow night, it's fast approaching. Are there any players, because I know you said that, in your opinion, it's kind of Caicedo or bust. I kind of feel the same. I feel the same. I feel like if we don't get this over the line, I feel that we won't sign a CM. And for me, that is a massive concern.
Criminal, yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because I think if there were alternatives that we really bought into, I think we would have moved on already. And I think that's the reason why we're considering this third bid and we're really pushing to try and get this over the line. However, just theoretically thinking, if we don't get this and there are alternatives, are there any other players out there, Premier League based or European based or world football, that you think we might have like a cheeky punt at potentially getting over the line, or if you'd like the club to make a move for?
It's difficult because there's players that I think can do us good stead in the long term, but I don't know if they're ready for the step up now. Like I always say, he's become a popular name now, but I've been harping on about him for a while because I paid attention to when Aaron Ramsey joined Nice. There's a midfielder called Kefren Turam. Everyone keeps speaking about it. I don't know if you've seen it on socials or whatever. So I've been watching him since Aaron Ramsey joined Nice. And he looks like a proper player. He looks like a I don't know, in the same mold of, I don't know, like a Yaya Toure or like a Patrick Vieira in the 6'4", built, good on the ball, strong, agile, spin around
Mm,
people. He looks like that kind of player, and for me, he's one I'd go in for if we can't get Caicedo.
yeah.
I'd also take a punt at Ruben Neves. I like the look of Ruben Neves, and we've been linked with him before. I feel like that is a deal you could probably get for about 40 million quid,
Hmm.
50 million quid. I feel like because his contract is running down. I feel like he's got a year and a half left on it. Um, so maybe him. I would stay away from Tielemans because I just don't think he is what we need right now in terms of
Mm,
we're looking for versatility and someone that can cover both. I feel like
yeah.
Neves can play the DM role. He's not defensively as good as Thomas Partey, but on the ball, I feel like he's decent enough. And then obviously to play him in central midfield, I feel like he could do Xhaka's role very good. Um, but again, I'm more concerned about, and this is the way I try and look at our transfers, is the long term vision of the squad and where we want to be, because this is what Arteta and Edu and the board and whatever have always spoken to us as in the long term plan. Right? They've always said this. Arteta said he had a 5-step plan or whatever it was when he came in. And he did an
Yeah.
interview. He even spoke about it on Monday Night Football with Jamie Carragher. I don't know if you saw that. He said that he had a 4 or 5-step plan, and Jamie Carragher asked him, where are we right now? Are we ahead? And he said, yeah, we're ahead of time wise where we wanted to be, because I feel like this season was going to be Champions League, next season was going to be kick on them, try and compete for a title. So we're early on it. So I feel like their thinking is longer term, and next year is going to be like, right, where do we want to be? What are the profiles? What are the midfielders? What are the age? That kind of stuff. So it's difficult. And I would want to jeopardize the long term success for a trophy, especially a Premier League, because in the future a Premier League title isn't guaranteed, and I don't think we're going to be in a position again where we find ourselves now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'd look Prem proven,
Hmm.
and I probably who I'd go for is Ruben Neves, if that's even possible. I don't know, but they've signed a lot of midfielders
Yeah.
at Wolves recently.
I mean, this is the thing though, and I think this is the concern amongst Arsenal fans is that have we put all our eggs in one basket with regards to this Casado deal, and I would like to think we haven't. Even though that's my gut instinct, I think maybe that's a bit of anxiousness, a bit of nervousness because the window's fast approaching. Because I mean, after Mudryk, I wasn't rock bottom because Vlahovic for me was rock bottom. And I've always said from that moment, I always said, you know what, I'm never going to be as invested in a potential signing until an actual signing is made. Because yeah, that one got me. I mean, I was watching Fiorentina games and all sorts. Do you know what I mean? Thinking I was evaluating all these celebrations, thinking, is he about to say goodbye? Is he, he's going to be at Arsenal? Blah 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 blah. And that one just went south. So the Mudryk one, although it was disappointing, it was disappointing. And my concern was, okay, what do we do now? That was my concern. What do we do now? What's the alternative? What's the plan B? And when all the other news started to come out about the Mudryk deal and the murkiness of it, I thought, you know what, maybe it was best that we kind of didn't go down that route. At the end of the day, time will tell because I think he looks a player. So we'll see whether we made the right choice. But I was happy with Trossard. And Trossard for me was a phenomenal bit of business. I bumped heads with a lot of Arsenal fans over that. I never really got it. Their opposition to the signing. I mean, people talking about his age, 28. I mean, Jesus Christ, like 28. He's in his prime, absolute prime. We've got the youngest squad in the Premier League. We can't have a team of 21, 22-year-olds. For me, 28 was a perfect age. Premier League proven, both foot, right, left. If you look at his stats over the last however many seasons, quality signing. So for me, it's not so much, okay, cool. I want Caicedo. If we don't get him, who's next? That is going to be the key thing, I think, between now and obviously tomorrow night. If we get him, great. If we don't, who do we get? The problem is if we don't get anybody, I think that's where there's going to be a massive backlash from the fans'
Yeah.
perspective. Come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to come in?
Yeah. I agree. Look, I've been skeptical of Edu, but he's proven me wrong in quite a few occasions. In the sense of he's gotten alternatives to when we missed out on a target, and I appreciate the work he's done in terms of
Mm,
finding value for money and getting high quality players in for fees.
Yeah.
What I worry about, and I have worried about since the Vlahovic deal, where we've struggled to get big money signings over the line.
Yeah.
Vlahovic,
Yeah.
Mudryk now
Yeah.
seeming to be, and this is what worries me, is there
Yeah. It's a
seems
bit
to
of a
be a
trend.
pattern, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, a trend in the
Yeah.
sense of whenever we go in for a big money signing, something is
Hmm.
stopping it from happening. And I know the Mudryk one was, you could say it was a Chelsea situation, but look, if we bid 95 million, you would have thought we would have gone for 100. I know there's a difference in the bonuses that they offered, and they offered more money up front, etc., etc. I get that, but the Vlahovic one again, similar. Yes, he wanted Juventus, but I feel like if you offered the money, his head would be swayed. Same thing that happened with Mudryk. Mudryk clearly wanted Arsenal, but
Yeah.
they put the money up. He's gone them.
Yeah.
That's the be all and end all of
And
it.
we had a lot of player buy-in.
Yeah,
Like, come
we
on,
did
like
a
we had
lot.
100% player
Yeah,
buy-in with Mudryk.
so
We still
like
lost out.
with that's my only worry in the sense
Mm.
of for the now and the future. If we're gonna go in for, I don't know, for example, let's say we fail hypothetically. I'm touching wood that we sign him, but let's say
Yeah.
hypothetically we fail the Caicedo deal, right? We bring someone in temporarily, and in the summer we either go back in for Caicedo
Mm.
or we go in for Declan Rice, or we try and go in for both, right? How does that plan out and how does that
Yeah.
look? Because if we're trying to go for the bigger money and the bigger target signings,
Hmm.
I no longer have confidence in the board to
Yeah.
pull them out the hat. And
Yeah.
as Greg has said, look, I have all the
Yeah.
confidence in the world that we are scouting is top notch, and the
Hmm.
second fullbacks we're going to go to is fine. But there's going to come to a point when there's a target that, for example, I don't know, Thierry Henry, right? If he was on the market and we didn't get him, that's a once in a generational player gone,
Yeah.
and he's
100%.
gone to someone else in the Prem, right?
Hmm.
For all we know, Mudryk is that player. For all we know, Caicedo is that player. For all we know, in the summer, Declan Rice might be that player. And I feel like Declan Rice is the one that I feel like is a once in a generational player. For me, he's a
Hmm.
unicorn player. So if we miss out on him, who is quite clearly our number one summer target based off
Yeah.
of all the reliable
Yeah. Yeah.
sources,
All the reliable sources
right?
are saying it. Yep.
There is a point when you're like, what is going on?
Mm.
You know? And there comes a point when you're just like, there has to be a stance with enough is enough. And
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but in terms of the
Yeah.
big signings and the big money, I'm really worried.
Yeah, I hear you completely. And I think, like you said, Greg makes a really good point. The recruitment, the strategy after missing out on top targets has been phenomenal. In that, we missed out on Vlahovic, we got Jesus. We missed out on Martinez, we got Zinni. We missed out on Mudryk, we got Trossard. So in many ways, the plan B or the alternatives have been really, really good. And let's face it, those three players that Greg just mentioned, we absolutely love, we absolutely adore. They're performing fantastically well. At the same time, we have missed out on some really top targets. And the hope is that we go on to win the Premier League. We're back in the Champions League, and that would then open the door. Even if we don't, and we get top four, that's gonna project us, to another level. And we're going to be looking at the likes of Declan Rice and, dare I say it, the players like Usherman, Napoli striker and stuff like that. But really and truly, like, what we're seeing is a trend of, high profile players and targets that we're going for. And for whatever reason, we're not winning those duels. And, the whole narrative and the whole PR that comes out of the club is we're not going to get into a bidding war with another club. We're only going to sign players that don't need to be convinced, by obviously, joining Arsenal, and we're not going to overpay. But realistically, it's nonsense. Like, realistically, because, and I keep saying this, like, a lot of Arsenal fans keep saying to me, oh, but this, and I'm like, what? You're taking what the club are saying too literally. Like, for me, it's a positive spin that they put out there when we miss out on a target, because Arsenal were not the only club that was interested in Gabriel Jesus. We weren't the only club that was interested in Zinchenko or Fabio Vieira or any of our signings. So we would have outbidded another club. We would have competed with another club. And are you telling me at the time the club felt that Ben White was worth 50 million? No, the club did not feel that. That's why they went in with a 40 million or 35 million pound bid. Eventually, they came to a common ground or met the valuation of Brighton and paid the 50 million. So for me, that whole narrative around we won't overpay, and we won't get into a bidding war, for me, it's just a media spin. It's something we put out there when we miss out on a target. I don't believe it. I think is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Because if that was the case, why the hell did we put up a £90 million package for Mudryk? It's like,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mudryk is not worth 90 million. Caicedo right now is not worth 70 million.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole narrative that we will never overpay for a player is absolute nonsense.
Bullshit.
Like,
Yeah.
it's crap. Do you know what I mean? I think what realistically is, there is a limit to what we will pay for a player. But this narrative of we will never overpay is absolute nonsense. But yeah, there are some obviously, you know what I mean? I think we could obviously sit here and talk all day about Caicedo. And you know what I mean, we can obviously, you know, we just have to kind of sit and wait, see what's happening with regards to it. I mean, I know you're like me, we want it to get over the line. Will it get over the line? We'll have to just wait and see. We've got some comments here. Greg again saying PR. And yeah, it's just PR that they push out there. And Arsenal are very good at it. Very, very good at it, you know. We've got Gary here. Don't waste tweet. Morning, G, James, and chat room. Morning to yourself. We've also got Silva again saying morning, Gary. Hope he's well. And then him replying. So, I mean, apart from Caicedo, hopefully those of you who are watching, massive thank you. We've got the viewing numbers are up there. So please do, if for whatever reason you haven't liked the stream video, please do like it. If for whatever reason you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. You know, we're fast approaching a bit of a landmark, so we want to get there as quickly as possible. So please do hit the like and the subscribe button while you're tuned in to this afternoon's show. So yeah, there are some stuff, you know, there's other stuff going on, not just obviously, you know, Caicedo. If there are any updates on the Caicedo deal or any other breaking news with regards to Arsenal, please do obviously let us know ASAP, because obviously I'm trying to keep in time with the lineup, but the timeline, but it's not always possible. So I'll move on to something quick, something other bit of news that came in this morning, and that was Marquinhos has well, it's not been made official, but one of the kind of Arsenal mouthpieces have come out and said, I can't remember who it was actually.
Ryan Taylor, I think.
There you go. Ryan Taylor came out and said exclusively that Marquinhos will be making a move to Norwich. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. I think the plan was always for him to become like acclimated to, you know, the squad, the language, new country, all of this, just to settle in, you know, and figure out his way around. Because moving from Brazil to the UK is a bit of a culture shock. They don't speak Portuguese over here. It's a lot colder, you know, there's a lot of changes that are going on. So I didn't mind that. Plus, I mean, we got a glimpse of him in the Europa League games, plus some of the cup games as what he could do.
Yeah.
And I like this move because I was always thought he was going to go to La Liga because, again, a lot of Brazilians tend to go to Spain or Portugal, you know, for their loans. However, I feel like this move is good. I think Norwich, I don't know where they are in the championship, but let's be real, Norwich are a yo-yo team. So I'm very confident they're going to be back in at least the top end of the championship. So yeah, I like that we're loaning him to the lower tier of England, which is good because I feel like that transitions well into the Premier League. Hopefully we can hone some of his skill set into the squad next season moving forward, or if he needs another loan, that's perfectly fine. But I'm happy with it, and I feel like if this is true and it does go through, I feel like Reece Nelson might be quicker to coming back than we thought with his injuries. And yeah, man, I'm happy with it. It's what he needed. He needs game time. He's young. He needs to develop. So it seems like a good loan.
Yeah, you know what it is with the Marquinhos one? I mean, I think a lot of us felt like he came to the club and then, I mean, he kind of burst onto the scene, didn't he, really? I mean, he had a couple of appearances in Europa League and stuff, and he looked good. He looked strong. He looked sharp. And then nothing happened. So, you know, we don't really know why that happened. But then at the same time, I don't think many of us envisioned him having much of a say or much of an input in terms of you know, this season. So I think the loan is definitely needed. It did come to a little bit of a surprise for me in that, do you know what I mean? Like when you look at the right-hand side, I mean, we don't have much cover for Saka. Yes, Nelson was hitting some form, but he's recently gone out injured. So, like you said, there's got to be a lot of confidence in terms of his injury and him coming back and potentially hitting form again. I think long term we do need somebody, for me, better in that position that can compete and rotate with Saka. That is a grade above the likes of Marquinhos, given his age, and Nelson, given like he's like a development, over the years at Arsenal. But yeah, I was quite surprised about this one. But I think it's a really good move for the player, and I think what we need to ensure we do is we don't necessarily mismanage players. I kind of feel like our reluctance, or maybe not even reluctance, our inability to sign competent centre mids has somewhat damaged or made Sambi's development regress. Because I think when we bought him, none of us pretty much knew who he was, and I don't think any of us actually thought he would come into the team and have much of an input. But he came in and he was forced to be thrown in the deep end because, again, we didn't sign, that top midfielder. And then injuries, suspensions happened, and then we had to throw him in. And he played in some big games where he was just absolutely taken to the wolves. And that confidence has just sapped out of him. So I think that's why the Marquinhos move is good, because we don't want something like that to happen again. Yeah, he's been in and around the first team. He's had a couple of appearances. He's looked pretty good. But for whatever reason, that's dried up. So whatever Arteta is seeing behind the scenes, he doesn't trust him to put him out there. He's on the bench and he's not playing. Although we've all also seen that he's too good to play in the youngsters because he's just scoring at will. So I think the move is right, and I think it's a good move for him. So I hope he goes there, and he does really well. So we wish him all the best. And I think at the moment we're just waiting for that to be made official. But by all accounts, Marquinhos will be off to Norwich this window. Another one, Arsenal news, which has been floating about the whole window, is the Fresneda deal. The Spanish kid who plays at right back for Valladolid, I believe it is. Seen as somewhat of a clone of Zinchenko, but plays on the right, inverted right back. Seems like it was a done deal. Some in the nose were saying it was a done deal. Dortmund and us were the ones that were kind of really vying for his signature. A little bit of noise. Newcastle were very much interested as well. It's been announced, I think by Fabrizio, I think it was, that he will be staying with his club. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I'm not too mad at it. It would have been a smart pickup, I feel like. I haven't watched him too much, but he, again, from everything you said, from the reports we've seen, from a few videos I've seen on Scout, he looks like a good technical player. Similar to Zinchenko, except he's a lot taller. He's 6 foot.
Yeah.
So he fits the mold of the defenders that we're going for, 6 foot plus physical beasts. So he looks good. He looks good on the ball, and he looks good in central areas like Zinchenko is. But again, this is only from small clips. I haven't extensively watched him over like 5, 10, 90-minute games, so I can't elaborate. It just seemed like a piece of smart recruitment with an opportunity on the market. I don't know if that's now been scuppered because of Cedric. He looks like he's moving to Fulham, but that still hasn't gone through yet.
Yeah, no, it hasn't.
So I don't know if that's playing a factor, or if the fact of like we're trying to put all our finances into the Caicedo deal, so we're not going to have anything left to spend on Fresneda. But yeah, we'll see. Again, it just seems like an opportunity in the market that seemed to fit what we're looking for, because I know a lot of people like Tierney, and I don't want to keep badgering on about him, and I'm not going to be critical of him, but I just feel like I'm questioning his position within the team as we're evolving as a squad. I'm not saying we should sell him. I'm not saying we should keep him. I'm not saying anything about that. But the direction we're trying to go in, I feel like how City have Ake, how they have Kyle Walker, they have 2 inverted on the other side, and then they have Gomez, and then they have Rico Lewis on the other sides, where they can do the exact opposite of what those two can do. And I feel like we're going to be going into that mold. So it just seemed like a smart pickup within the dynamic of the team, because I feel like Tommy's going to shift inside somewhere. I don't see him as the right back long term. I feel like he's going to do what Sergio Ramos did in the sense of started off as a right back, a really good defensive right back, then shifted inside and then became arguably the greatest centre back of all time. I'm not saying Tommy's going to do that. I just see a similar pathway in terms of where he could be, because we signed Jacob as the backup left-sided centre back, or he might even turn into the inverted left back. I don't know yet. Long term, I feel like it's going to be the left centre back position, but I see that there is an open slot behind Saliba.
Yeah.
In that sense of, he could be there, and I would trust him. If Saliba was not in the squad and Tommy was playing as a right centre back, he's really good on the ball, so I just trust him there.
Yeah.
So yeah, not to stray away from the Fresneda deal too much, but yeah, it just seems like a bit of a miss. But we're stacked in that position. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think, like, looking into him, obviously since we've been linked, he looks like an absolute baller. 18 years of age. I mean, even if we signed him, there was talks of him going back on loan. He wouldn't really have an impact in terms of like this season and the title push. But it's good that the club are looking at young players, and I very much like that, because I think with the way the market is, we've got to start doing this more often. With the likes of Martinelli, picking him up for like a couple of million here and there. We've got to try and get these players early, because once they get to a club and they get established and they've got exposure, the fees and the valuations are just going through the roof. So we need to be able to try and beat that, that before jumping on it when it's too late. So I'm not too gutted if we miss out. And you know what? If the move is not going to transpire until summer, there's no reason why we can't go for him in the summer. So that one for me, I mean, yeah, it's always a bit disappointing that you miss out on a potentially good player, but ultimately, I think right now we've got more pressing issues, notably our centre mid situation. Yeah. So for me, it makes it kind of is what it is, really. I'll take that one on the chin. We're moving on now to obviously what come to a bit of a surprise, a little bit of news which isn't related to Arsenal in terms of players, but is related to us in terms of the title push and potentially weakening a title rival in Man City. I mean, this broke today, and I think it was Orni who broke it. An exclusive that Cancelo is joining Bayern Munich on loan for the rest of the season with an potential option to buy. And this kind of follows some stories and some tweets that are coming out of Man City recently about certain players not being happy. The likes of Bernardo Silva, Cancelo, obviously, Gundogan, Laporte, and Kyle Walker. Now, I mean, these are really experienced players, of a certain age. They've been with Pep Guardiola throughout the kind of course of his time at Man City, part of, Premier League winning, teams. What do you make of the reported unrest at City, and what do you make of this transfer from City to Bayern Munich for Cancelo?
Yeah, it was surprising. Look, when that news report came out, I thought it was a load of muck. I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was true. For me, there was not really much indication as to there seemed to be an unhappy camp within City. I know they've dropped a few points, but it's not like they're downing tools and not playing. Yeah. They are playing. They're just a bit worse than they were last season currently. Yeah. But this may suggest that report was accurate, because I mean, look, Cancelo just hasn't been getting game time. Like he's been so good the past 3 or 4 seasons for City, and he's played so many minutes and looked really, really, really good. But then Ake started to play there. I don't know how many minutes Gomez has got on the left, but Cancelo just hasn't really been there regularly from all accounts. And yeah, I just believe he wanted game time. I just feel like he had a bit of a falling out with, maybe Pep, maybe the ownership. I don't know. But there is a buy option within that loan, so that they do have an option to make it permanent. And I mean, if it was just for game time and you saw him long term as in your squad, you probably wouldn't include the buy option. So I think that's a bit telling. But look, I'm not going to sit here and complain. Like, I don't know if City are going to strengthen. I don't know. There's from all the indications at the moment, they're not. But I'm probably going to look like a clown now that I've said that, and then they're going to sign someone out of the blue and spend 100 million quid. But for us, I just feel like it's just a little, maybe not an advantage, but it gives us a bit of hope, because if Cancelo wasn't getting game time anyway, and he wasn't part of the plan, I don't feel like this transfer has any effect on the title race. However, if somebody does get injured, he's a fantastic player to have within that squad, and he can play left back really, really high level, right back really, really high level. Even as a central midfielder, he can play a really, really high level. So as a utility player, you know, he's pretty much Ainsley Maitland-Niles on steroids, right?
Yeah, literally.
He's just, maybe that's an insult to Cancelo and the way he is, but in terms of the squad dynamic, as to how I see him for that team now, he's a very, very, very high level utility player. And I feel like he just wanted regular game time. So going over to Bayern seems like a fit. I think Pavard's out. I think Mazraoui's out from what I was reading today. So he just slots right in at right back, and then you have Alphonso Davies and João Cancelo as your right back and left back. I mean, that's really, 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 really good options. Like, so yeah, man, it was a very, very big surprise, but I don't know how much it's going to affect the title race, if at all. So
yeah, I think you know what it is. I think everybody was surprised, and I don't think it will have a massive bearing on the title race this season. However, I do think City's team, in comparison to last season to this season, is the reason why maybe they're a little bit off the pace. And why, you know, I think we have a real chance, because I remember saying it at the time when we bought Gabriel Jesus, when we bought Zinchenko and they let Sterling go. Now, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, they are absolutely world-class players, but I mean, I do feel as though City's strength in depth, you know, is not what it was last season. Now, I know that sounds crazy because you look at their bench and their bench just looks insane, but I mean, you know, losing Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, Sterling, you know, and players like Cancelo, it's going to have an impact. Like, you know, regardless of the players they still have, it's going to have an impact. And I did say at the beginning of the season that I feel like if any season there's an opportunity to topple City, it could be this. And people laughed at me and people thought, "Now you're crazy. Like, look at their squad; they still got players." But I think you're seeing it. You know, you're seeing a City team that, yes, they're second, but at the same time, there is a vulnerability about, you know, this City side that we haven't seen in recent seasons. And I think a lot of that is because of some of the players that have left. And I think it comes down to the fact that, yes, they have a massive squad, and they have been rotating those players, but it just shows you that you can't keep, you know, a quality squad of that size. You can't keep them all happy. And there are lots of rumors that some of their senior players, you know, are, you know, wanting to leave the club, particularly the likes of Bernardo Silva. And you know what? That will have an impact. You know, psychologically, it will have an impact, you know, because what we see at Arsenal is a real, you know, harmony amongst the squad and a real togetherness. And if you're not seeing that, and if you look at some of the comments and stuff that Pep said in the press, you know, it doesn't all seem right. He's questioned his team's passion. He's questioned his team's work ethic. So when you start putting all those blocks together, I mean, it starts to paint somewhat of a picture. Yes, they'll always be there or thereabouts because he's a world-class coach and they've got world-class players. But, I mean, if there's ever a season to really kind of take advantage of where City at in terms of squad and in terms of just mindset, I think this is the season, which is why it makes it so paramount that we actually make, for me, the centre mid signing that we really need, you know, going into the end of this window. Just another bit of news. And again, we've got quite a few people watching. So thank you so much for tuning in for this random transfer show on Armory TV. If for whatever reason you haven't liked today's stream, please do like. And if for whatever reason you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we are fast approaching 900 subscribers, so please help us get there. Maybe even if we can get there before the end of today's stream. We won't be staying on the air too much longer because I know James, you were on a lunch break, and I know I've got a call at 2 p.m. So we kind of just fit this show in real quick. But just a little bit of news that's coming. Arsenal player Omar Rekik, obviously centre back that plays for us. He has returned to the club and he will be joining Wigan Athletic on loan until the end of the season. My thoughts on this quickly is I'm not sure he's progressed and developed to the extent that Arsenal felt he would when we signed him. He looked like a really promising prospect. And I kind of feel like maybe this loan to Wigan for the second half of the season is kind of last game saloon or whatever the saying is for him. I feel they'll probably assess him over the second half of the season. And I think come end of the season, I think they'll make a decision. He'll either be part of the squad or he'll be sold. What are your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think we picked him up when Guendouzi went to Hertha Berlin on loan.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we picked him up as part of that deal. Well, not part of that deal, but we went in and we saw what he liked and we picked him up from that same transaction. Anyway, he looked like a promising centre back, to be honest. He looked pretty good in the youth setup. He was highly touted. And then has gone on loan. I feel like where did he go? He went to the Eredivisie. I just can't
Yeah, he
remember
did. I can't remember the squad actually. Let me see if I can
what
find
team,
it.
but yeah, apparently he just hasn't been playing. So I mean, it would be the second player we sent to Wigan. I mean, we sent Miguel Aziz over there when Kolo Touré was the coach, but he's no longer the coach. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I hope it works out. Again, it's the championship, so it should give him good experience at least. And I hope he does play because he needs it. It looks like a solid centre back.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, short snippets and stuff like this. But yeah, it's again, I was surprised taking this long because there's been rumors of it happening, and the fact that he just hasn't been playing, he's just been on the bench, just you know. So yeah, I mean, if he gets the game time and he starts, then why not? I mean, I don't know where Wigan are in the championship again because I don't really watch the championship too much. But I mean, if he can help them out and then get good minutes there, it works out for all parties.
Definitely. And I think it's, I echo everything you said. And I think it's good because one thing I have seen in terms of moving in the right direction is we are making use of the loan system. If you look at the amount of players that we've got on loan, and what I also like is we're being proactive. If loans are not working, we have no issue in recalling that player and then loading them again to another squad. Or another team, sorry. We saw it with, the likes of Eddie, wasn't doing well at Leeds, wasn't really getting game time. We recalled him. We've got Tavares doing bits in the French league. We've got Balogun doing bits. So, I mean, that's what we really need to do. We've just loaned out Marquinhos. So I think, the likes of, I think most people would agree that's probably what needs to be done with Sambi. I think in many ways, I think, like I said earlier in the stream, I think our inability to sign decent centre mids have somewhat been the reason why he's regressed, because he's not ready for first team football. He needs a loan, but because we're so short in numbers, we can't loan him. Because even if we were to buy a centre mid, over the next, couple of hours between tomorrow, we still really can't afford for him to go out on loan. Because even if we bring in a Caicedo, we're still short. So I do think it's had an impact on his development, and he does need a loan. So we'll see how the rest of the window plays out. But yeah, that kind of wraps up today's show. I mean, we haven't had any other breaking news since we've been on. And I know myself and James have got obviously other bits to do. Who knows if we get some breaking news? I know you might potentially be free this afternoon or this evening. We me, James, or somebody else in the team may jump on and give you guys another stream a little bit later on in the evening. However, yeah, James, obviously, thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us. Let the people know, obviously, where they can find you and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, well, I'm on Twitter, but I'm not a massive content pusher. All I'm going to say is, as you've reiterated, please just subscribe to the Armory TV if you haven't. Big up. We're trying to be more consistent. We're almost at, as G said, a big goal for us. So if you could help us along the way and get us there, it'd be fantastic. And yeah, man. Wicked. See what the next day or so brings. Fingers crossed it's positive.
Wicked. And you know what? On that note, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you for an answer. Will Caicedo be a Arsenal player or Brighton player come 11 p.m. tomorrow night?
Brighton player.
Oh, man,
I want to be optimistic, bro.
Yeah, you've heard it, people. You've heard it, people. James is saying he's going to be a Brighton player come 11 p.m. tomorrow night. I'm going to say he's going to be an Arsenal player. I'm going to keep the faith, even though my head is telling me no, Granville. Like it's not happening. I'm gonna try and keep some faith, keep some hope between now and 11 p.m. tomorrow night. But yeah, you know what? Like James said, those of you still watching, thank you obviously for tuning in. We can't do none of this without you. So it's absolute pleasure to create content for you guys. Please do like the stream and also subscribe to the channel. But until we get some breaking news, we're over and out. So take care, people. See you soon.